Ethan Cole had spent 15 years chasing criminals through the roughest streets of the city, but all he wanted now was peace. Maple Ridge Estates seemed perfect for that: neat lawns, smiling neighbors, and a quiet street lined with identical mailboxes. After years of undercover work, Ethan had finally bought himself a little slice of normal life. His dark gray pickup sat proudly in the driveway, still covered in the faint dust of his last fishing trip. It wasn't fancy, but it was his something solid and earned. That calm lasted exactly 9 days. On a warm Tuesday morning, Ethan opened his front door and found a bright orange notice taped to it. HOA violation, it read in bold red letters. The offense: unauthorized vehicle, non-compliant with neighborhood standards. He stared at the paper, then at his own truck. There was nothing wrong with it: no leaks, no rust, no broken parts. Just a working man's vehicle parked in his own driveway. At first, he laughed. It had to be some mistake, maybe even a prank. But later that afternoon, a white SUV marked Maple Ridge HOA Patrol rolled slowly down his street. Inside, a man in aviator sunglasses took photos of his house with a tablet, zooming in on the driveway. Ethan stepped outside and gave him a polite wave, but the SUV kept crawling forward without a word. By evening, a neighbor named Mrs. Grant came by with a sympathetic look. "You're new here," she whispered. "The HOA's gotten strict. Randall Pierce runs it now, used to be a security guard. Thinks he's the sheriff of the neighborhood." Ethan smiled and brushed it off, but something in her tone told him it wasn't an exaggeration. The next morning, another notice appeared. This time, the list of violations had grown. His grass was 1 inch above regulation height, and his mailbox was not HOA-approved color. Ethan shook his head, reading the absurd list over coffee. Old instincts stirred. Something about the precision, the intimidation tactics, it felt like surveillance, not maintenance. As he watched that same HOA SUV make another slow pass by his house, camera in hand, Ethan realized peace might not come easily in Maple Ridge Estates. What he didn't know yet was that this wasn't just about a truck. It was about control, and he was about to become their biggest problem. By the end of the second week, Ethan's mailbox looked like a war zone of warnings and citations. Every morning, a new envelope appeared, each one stamped with urgent HOA notice. The tone of the letters grew harsher, accusing him of failure to comply, and threatening escalating fines. His truck was still the main target, but the complaints had spread to ridiculous details. His lawn wasn't uniformly green, the light above his porch was too bright, and his front doormat didn't adhere to community design standards. Ethan had dealt with mob bosses and gangsters, but this level of petty obsession was something else entirely. He tried to handle it the right way. He attended an HOA meeting in the community center, hoping for a reasonable discussion. The room was filled with folding chairs, stale coffee, and people who seemed to enjoy the sound of their own authority. At the head of the table sat Randall Pierce, a bulky man with slick back hair and a smug grin that practically screamed control. "You're the one with the truck," Pierce said, not even trying to hide his disdain. "Maple Ridge has standards, Mr. Cole. We can't have our neighborhood looking like a construction zone." Ethan leaned back, calm but firm. "That truck's registered, insured, and clean. It's parked in my driveway, not on your lawn." Pierce smirked. "We'll see what the board decides." The way he said it told Ethan that the board was just a word. Pierce was the real power here. After that meeting, things escalated fast. He started catching HOA patrol members walking near his yard late at night, shining flashlights into his windows and jotting notes. One morning, he found his trash bins overturned, and another citation claiming he'd left them in public view. Ethan installed a small camera near his porch just to keep record, but even that earned him another fine for non-approved modifications. Then, one Saturday morning, Ethan opened his door and froze. Nailed right into the wooden frame was a piece of paper labeled "Final Notice, Property Subject to HOA Eviction." His jaw tightened as he read the threat, every line dripping with arrogance and illegality. Ethan wasn't just being harassed anymore. He was being targeted, and whoever these people thought they were, they had no idea who they were messing with. Ethan decided that morning that the game was over. He'd spent his career gathering evidence against criminals who thought they were untouchable, and now, a self-appointed neighborhood dictator was trying to play the same role. So, he switched gears from homeowner to investigator. He installed discrete security cameras around the property, tiny ones hidden in porch lights and window trims. Every night, he reviewed the footage, noting the same faces creeping around his yard. HOA members taking photos, one even peeking over his fence with a flashlight. They were crossing lines, and Ethan was patient enough to let them hang themselves with their own rope. Within a week, he'd collected hours of footage, proof of trespassing, harassment, and even document tampering. One night, his camera caught Randall Pierce himself stepping onto Ethan's porch, holding a clipboard and whispering to another man, "We'll file the abandonment claim next. That'll teach him to ignore us." Ethan paused the video, a faint smirk forming on his face. They weren't just overstepping, they were committing crimes. He printed everything: photos, timestamps, statements, and tucked them neatly into a file folder labeled Maple Ridge HOA. But instead of calling it in right away, he wanted to see just how far they'd go. A few days later, Pierce and two of his board members arrived at Ethan's house in their white SUV, followed by a tow truck. They wore matching polo shirts embroidered with Maple Ridge HOA enforcement, as if pretending to be law officers. Pierce shouted from the curb, "You've been officially evicted for repeated violations and refusal to comply. We have the right to seize property left behind." His voice carried the false confidence of a man who believed no one would stand up to him. Ethan stood quietly in the doorway, arms crossed. "You sure about that?" he asked. Pierce sneered. "You can take it up with the board after we're done here." Ethan sighed and disappeared inside without another word. For a few seconds, the men laughed, thinking he'd given up. Then the front door swung open again and Ethan stepped out wearing his tactical vest, badge glinting under the sun, and his service weapon holstered at his side. The laughter died instantly. The self-proclaimed enforcers froze as reality dawned. This wasn't just another homeowner. They had just tried to evict a cop. For a long, tense moment, no one moved. The HOA crew stood frozen in Ethan's driveway, their clipboards trembling in their hands. The tow truck driver shifted uncomfortably, glancing between Ethan's badge and Pierce's paling face. The air was heavy with silence, broken only by the faint hum of cicadas in the afternoon heat. Ethan stepped forward slowly, voice calm but edged with steel. "Randall Pierce, you and your team are under arrest for criminal trespassing, harassment, and property fraud." He raised his phone, pressing a button. "Dispatch, this is Detective Ethan Cole, badge number 4927. I need a unit at Maple Ridge Estates. Multiple suspects on scene, attempting illegal eviction." Pierce stammered, his earlier arrogance gone. "Now hold on, Detective, this is a misunderstanding. We were just enforcing HOA policy." "Policy?" Ethan cut in sharply. "You forged eviction documents, vandalized private property, and entered a home without a court order. That's not policy. That's a felony." The flashing lights of two patrol cars appeared at the end of the street moments later. Neighbors peeked through their blinds as uniformed officers stepped out, confusion etched on their faces as they saw the supposed HOA officers being handcuffed by their own local police. One of the patrol officers, recognizing Ethan, nodded with quiet respect. Pierce tried one last plea. "You don't understand. This neighborhood has rules. People like you think you're above them." Ethan met his eyes coldly. "No one's above the law, Randall. Not even you." As Pierce and his cronies were led to the squad cars, Ethan handed over the evidence folder he'd been building for weeks. "Everything you need is in there," he told the responding officer. "Surveillance footage, fake documents, timestamps. Make sure this gets to the DA." Within minutes, the